Every new year, we tell ourselves the same story. This year, we say, will be better than the last. This year will inspire us. It will change us. But life is more complicated than that. What defines us isn't the turning of the calendar, but how we respond to the days and weeks and months the new year brings. This was never more true than in 2020. A year that forced us to confront fears, to face hard truths, to make difficult choices. 2020 didn't change us so much as it reinforced who we are, as individuals and as a nation. Angry or hopeful, adrift or grounded, divided or united. 2020 showed us what we're made of. It revealed us.
Well, the Chinese government has locked down more Chinese cities because of this mysterious coronavirus.
The first confirmed U.S. case of the contagious coronavirus now in Washington state.
World Health Organization has just declared a global pandemic.
Pandemic is not a word to use lightly.
We are all in this together. We must put politics aside and unify together as one nation and one family.
Dr. Acton just signed a stay-at-home order for all Ohioans.
I don't want you to be afraid. I am not afraid. I am determined.
At first, the threat feels distant. Something about a virus in China, about sick people half a world away. Then, it's everywhere. No Olympics, no school, no weddings or funerals. We're told to stay home, to be patient. We're all in this together. Nina Salzman is 7. She lives in Bellevue with her mom, dad, sister, and a cat named Dolly Parton. When Nina's school closes, her dining room becomes her classroom. Her parents, who are working full-time jobs, become her part-time teachers.
Oh, that's what she is? Okay, that's cool.
I was going to school and everything, and then, my last day of school was March 13th.
Good morning, everyone. Give me a thumbs up. How was your evening? Did you have a good night? All right, let's run through the schedule for the day.
Miss Pitzer?
Yes, ma'am.
How do you pull up a keyboard?
It's underneath your slide. That's where I want you to type it. Sound good?
Okay.
Find it?
Yeah.
All right, today is math.
Probably be this one. I'm gonna go back to school, but it's gonna be different.
Early on, people pull together. They get creative. They find new ways to connect, to work, to learn.
A little T-Rex yoga. I like it.
Donna Kinney is a cancer survivor who lives alone. She's determined to stay in touch with the outside world, even if she can't leave her apartment.
This is what I've been doing. Some Vera Bradley cards that are kind of fancy. And then I lived in St. Croix, so I got seashell cards. I've got all kinds of stuff in here. This is a new box. You know, it's fun for me, and I love hummingbirds, so this is my second batch of stuff. I'll get more. I've probably spent $100 on stamps. And somebody said, that's crazy. And I said, no, it's not. I know what it's like to get something in the mail that is not a bill. I tell them, you know, thinking of you, hope you're doing all right, and call me if you want to chat or drop me a note. It's worth it to me to try to make somebody's day a little better. We got to take care of each other now, especially now. We don't know what's going to happen. And every morning I thank God for another day.
Many seek solace from religion, but they can't worship as they once did. Regardless of their faith, believers confront the same dilemma. How do you support one another when you can't be together?
Say man and honk your horn. Come on, man.
The building is not the church. The church is inside the people. The separation is what is the killer. When we are not there together, mixing and shaking hands and hugging, it creates a loss.
This is a time for all of us in America and throughout the world of deep uncertainty.
We had to find a way to still be relevant in the lives of our people, even though they weren't going to be able to come to the building. We really shifted and had to understand, how do we pastor people from a distance?
This too shall pass. We don't know when. It didn't come to stay.
The pandemic is more than an inconvenience. It's now the greatest health and economic crisis in generations. People are getting sick, losing jobs, missing rent payments. Those who have the least suffer the most.
No matter how you look at other people and what they have, there's always someone who has less.
Hi, is this Patricia? Hi, this is Carolyn. I'm a volunteer with the Brighton Center, and I'm on my way with your pantry delivery for this month, okay? All right, well, I should be there in just a couple minutes.
Being an active part of the community is important, getting out there and meeting your neighbors, but also supporting them, because every time you do that, it's an easy, no-pressure environment. It doesn't cost you anything, and you get to know people who live around you. There's never enough volunteers. There's never enough dedicated volunteers, too, that, I don't know, back to our self-focused culture, I guess, that are willing to do it, a lot of thankless jobs. And just know that it needs to be done, and do it. Be glad that you have the resources to do it, and the time, and the good fortune, and the skill. I don't see volunteering for anything pandemic related, really, or even just volunteering as someone who's interested in maintaining community, building community, and just making a difference. Ever not being a part of my life.
There you go, ma'am. You're welcome. Stay safe. You too.
By the end of April, more than 60,000 Americans who contracted COVID-19 are dead.
Every day you wait, our lives will be lost. And so I've had that kind of sense of urgency throughout this.
If you think you're in line with the outbreak, you're already 3 weeks behind. And that's the reason why the kinds of things we're doing that may seem like an overreaction will keep us away from that worst case scenario.
We didn't have effective treatment because we hadn't seen it. The early mortality rate was terrifying. So there was the fear of the unknown, but also how much more deadly it could be because of what we didn't know.
I don't think I've ever faced a challenge with this level of ramification to society. People stayed at home. They had their heart attacks at home. Sudden death rates at home went up as much as 800% in New York City. People didn't want to come to the hospital. Their primary care docs said, don't go to the hospital, because their fear of COVID-19.
Sherry Kleckner is a medical assistant at a drive-through COVID testing center. One day in March, her uncle shows up, coughing and struggling to breathe. Soon, her father is sick too.
Starting off with the 10, it started off slow, and then all of a sudden it was up to 200 people in a day, and it was exhausting. It still is exhausting. You just get to the point where you're just like, we're done. Is this ever going to be over with? People that come into work, they say that they don't believe it, and then I tell them, you know, I know plenty of people that have had it, and then I tell them, yeah, my dad died from it, and they're like, oh, like, yeah. It is real. He just kept getting sicker and sicker, and they actually had to put him on a vent. It was a Saturday. Sorry. And they called us on a Sunday and said that we had to decide what to do with him because he wasn't responding anymore. So his girlfriend and I decided to take him off of the ventilator, and he ended up dying like an hour later, and we weren't allowed to be there. Couldn't even be in there to hold his hand, or the nurse actually said she was going to sit in there, and we FaceTime, but he, he wasn't there. So we didn't get to say we said our goodbyes, but hopefully he heard. When I was at the funeral home, I had a ID Dad's body, and I just said we should take his picture and put it up on a billboard and say, look, it is real. It makes me angry, because if it didn't happen, he would still be here.
Even the rituals around death and dying change. How do you grieve when you can't be together? When you can't gather for a funeral, or shiva, or janaza? Lori Hicks is a funeral director. It's her job to find a way.
A lot of sleepless nights, lots of tears were shared with families. We went from a period of time where families weren't allowed to be bedside, and then sitting in front of myself that gets to tell them that they could have 9 other people with them to say their final goodbyes to their husband or to their dad. And where is that cutoff line? Our lives are so important. We celebrate so many milestones of our life. It's not fair for the death to be taken away from somebody. And that's what we were feeling like in the beginning, was we were the ones that were taking, that we were the ones taking that opportunity away from somebody, something that's so very important. So, yeah, I was feeling guilty. Absolutely. So we kind of went from, oh no, what are we supposed to do now? We can't do what we used to do. We have found out that we really can. It just has a little bit of a different twist. You would have thought the first public visitation that we were able to host here, even though we had to figure out how to put the lines on the floor and how to set up our chairs, you would have thought we were preparing for a party. We were excited, we were happy, we were ready to open our doors, to have the community come back in our home. It's a new norm, but it's a new norm that feels better than where we were a couple months ago.
Lori and her staff now use a homemade UV wand after every funeral. The ultraviolet light sanitizes the room and allows them to quickly prepare for the next service. Jimmy Chung was a child in Hong Kong during the SARS outbreak there in 2003. This year, he's living through a similar crisis in Cincinnati, struggling with his girlfriend, Angela, to study music and hold on to the teaching jobs that pay their bills.
I still remember the day when I went to school and I swiped my card, right? And then the lock just wouldn't open. And I almost wanted to cry at that point. You know, at first I was, especially in the very, very beginning in March, I was quite depressed. and negative because I was thinking of a lot of uncertainties. I have nightmares of losing all my teaching jobs all at once. In March, I was also thinking about my careers. Music especially relies on a lot of people gathering together. I was like, yeah, if this is not going to end, I'm like, my career is done.
Okay, Jenny, can you play a little?
Yeah. And hello friends from YouTube. Thank you very much for joining us. The mini concert today is being streamed from our living room. We just purchased this piano like 2 weeks ago, right? After not having piano to practice on for almost like 3 months. I hope you enjoy it. I worry a lot about my piano skills because frankly, we don't go a day without practicing. I feel like I am compromising not only my career, but my students. I'm not able to give them the best that I can possibly can.
With schools closed, seniors lose out on more than education. Spring sports are canceled, so are proms and parties and graduation ceremonies. Stevie Wolf is a senior volleyball player at Mount Notre Dame, where she finds there's a new way to say goodbye.
Going into quarantine and having all of my senior events canceled, I was kind of in denial the first couple weeks, not really feeling like, oh, this is happening right now. And then it hit me like one night and I just broke down. I started crying. I just felt overwhelmed.
Take your hats off. Oh, you did it. Skill. You're going to go up to your commencement. She'll tell you what to do. It'll be easy. It'll be all fun.
Enjoy, Stevie. Congratulations.
So, what we're going to have you do, there's Cougar Paw right here. We're going to have you walk from that one to the one in the middle of the foyer.
It was better than I could have imagined. They did so many little things that made my experience so much better when I couldn't have the big graduation. It was very emotional to have my family there, and it was very intimate. At the end of the year, usually the seniors get a senior walkthrough, and we didn't get to do that this year, but the administration did such a good job. They took pictures and they hung them up on the lockers as we walked through. I got to see some of the teachers that I had gotten really close with, and I can't even put into words how much it meant to me.
Well, it says leave it. It usually says leave it here.
3 cookers gonna.
How does it feel me bad? Oh my god. Chill. I could love it as much as I want.
Last time in the gym.
I was able to really take that step forward and be, okay, I'm done with this. I can remember it, appreciate everything that it taught me, and now I get to move on. This is real. I'm actually going to college.
As the weeks wear on, COVID cases begin to decline. Death rates fall, the curve flattens. The shutdown is working, but it comes at a cost. Millions are out of work. Businesses, both large and small, close their doors and send employees home.
For the first time ever, American society, Democrat and Republican, decided to shut down to cure a medical problem.
Never did I expect in March we would be forced to close our doors. I think you should be honest about how sad you've been.
The saddest day of my life was the day we had to lay off 600 employees. This was the most difficult year in my career.
We had to make decisions that devastated people financially. We had to ask small businesses back in March and April, when we didn't have the tools to fight this, to shut down for periods of time. Some of them have never and will never reopen their doors. Those are people's dreams that you're asking them to sacrifice.
LaTroya Goins is a home health worker, and her husband, Jesse, is a janitor. The shutdown puts them both out of work. With 3 young children to feed, they delay plans to start their own business and focus instead on finding steady jobs.
It's really, really, really frustrating and really hard when you don't know if you can, walk outside today and still have a job.
Because we planned on starting our business, which was going to be janitorial. That definitely would have benefited because of Corona and all that, because that's the need right then. It's just frustrating that had to put it on hold.
COVID has been very, very, very difficult.
It's a struggle. It's a struggle. We all need each other, and if nobody in 2020 realized that by now, I don't know what to say.
And what Brittany did to bond all of these restaurateurs from all over the state of Ohio, she recognized that the only way we could come out of this and survive is if we all stood together and bonded. It's teared me up.
My assistant says, she told me today, she's like, you say this too shall pass every single day. I'm like, well, that's the motto. We're not going to be in a COVID world for the rest of our lives. I have a duty right now of here's what I need to do to keep this company not here for just the next, 90 days of zero revenue, but for the next 5, 10, 20 years, because this is family business. We're generation 2, and we love this business.
If the pandemic continues well into 2021, if the business does not return, if job creation is not real other than minimum wage jobs, the American dream is going to be a nightmare for a while.
In time, fear of the virus turns to frustration and to anger as some push back against safety precautions. The advice of medical professionals becomes controversial. Mask wearing becomes a political statement.
We've seen an incredible outpouring of support, but there have been those that don't. And what we have seen, and maybe it's amidst the current political environment, is more aggressive disagreement, anger, threats, even terrorism. And there's times when I haven't been able to take steps because the public just won't go along with it.
Mr. DeWine, open us back up. Allow our nation, allow our country, allow our state to get back to business. Let us get back to work.
But a lot of business owners were afraid they're going to lose their businesses if they didn't open up. We had to have a voice that people need to speak up. I was watching my friends struggle. I know people I knew, and then listening to people who I didn't know, telling their stories. They were struggling. I mean, this was 8 weeks of shutdown. I mean, we did what we were supposed to do. The numbers just aren't there. And COVID's real, don't get me wrong. Did people get COVID? Sure they did. And there was people that had to go to the emergency room, but they weren't getting overwhelmed. It wasn't what they thought.
You vote them out. And by the way, our country was built on checks and balances.
People are waking up and they want the truth. He's deceived us for real. This is our lives. We don't want to be locked down. We don't want to be lied to. We want to live life.
In April, protesters furious about restrictions in Kentucky gather outside during Governor Beshear's daily press briefing. They attempt to shout him down as he discusses the mounting death toll.
We do have some folks up here in Kentucky today, and everybody should be able to express their opinion that believes we should reopen Kentucky immediately right now. Folks, that would kill people. It would absolutely kill people. Today, we've got a report that we have lost 7 more people to the coronavirus.
And I'm trying to read out the information of people who died. And people are intentionally trying to drown that out. I wasn't going to let people see that it was hurtful, because those families that had lost individuals deserved better.
A month later, protesters return. This time, they show up at Beshear's home.
Crossing over barriers, standing on the other side of the glass from where I raised my kids, and hanging me in an effigy? That's an action intended to use fear to get their way. I will not be afraid. I will not be bullied, and I will not back down.
By the end of May, more than 100,000 Americans who contracted COVID-19 are dead.
And behind tonight's heartbreaking number, there are more than 100,000 people with names and stories.
100,000 souls lost not to a war or to terrorism, but to a virus that didn't exist just a few months ago.
Good afternoon. We're coming on the air now with breaking news in the killing of George Floyd, who died on Memorial Day. There you see him right there.
Let me see your other hand.
Please,
both hands.
Do nothing.
In late May, a new crisis brings protesters into the streets. A black man is held down by police in Minneapolis, a knee on his neck. As George Floyd dies, his last words ignite a movement. I can't breathe. I can't breathe.
I can't breathe! I can't breathe! I can't breathe! Tell me what democracy looks like! This is what democracy looks like! Move back! Move back!
The journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. Although we may not know where the road will lead, we know that love will always guide our feet. Oh, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. What do we do? Stand up like that.
Monica Ayetika is a singer and a school administrator in Cincinnati. When she sees video of Floyd's death for the first time, she weeps. Then, she adds her voice to the protests.
I wanted to give a safe, open space for people to sing, rap, read poetry, chant, cry, lament together. Because so many people, yes, they're angry, and yes, they're protesting, and yes, they're marching, but there's not a space for healing. There's not a space to put any of that energy, just get it out of your body.
I have a lot of nieces and nephews, and I just kept thinking, if my younger nephews, when they get older, were gonna ask me, like, what did I do in the summer of 2020? Where was I? What did I do? I just didn't want my answer to be like, oh, you know, I posted stuff on Facebook. That wasn't a good enough answer for them. That wasn't a good enough answer for them. You know, you can fight for freedom in a whole bunch of ways. And one of them is singing. And you can heal yourself in a whole bunch of ways. And one of those is singing, too.
I went down to the jailhouse and I took back what they stole from me. I took back my dignity. I took back my humanity. And now they're under my feet, under my feet, under my feet, under my feet. Ain't gonna let no system walk all over me.
I've seen a lot of things in my nearly 32 years. 2020 will be one for the ages. A pandemic, civil unrest, and to see a profession that I care about so deeply, to see so many wrongs taking place in such a short period, it's impactful.
Cincinnati Police Chief Elliot Isaac believes the response to Floyd's death is unfair to most police officers, but he acknowledges there's work to be done. Outside police headquarters, he takes a knee and prays with protesters.
We in law enforcement, we agree that there are wrongs and things that need to be corrected. But I ask that the citizens of Cincinnati grade Cincinnati police on their performance. I'm concerned about the future. I want to see lasting change come out of this, not knee-jerk reactions.
I am bubbling with joy to see at last our younger brothers and younger sisters out in the streets. Peace, power, all that kind of stuff. It couldn't have come at a better time.
Many Americans crave a return to routines, to distractions, to fun, but it isn't easy. Tucker Barnhart plays catcher for the Reds. With a pregnant wife at home and a pandemic raging, even baseball is complicated.
I didn't think about opting out or anything like that. I want to play ball. I'm a baseball player, so it's my job. I'm taking even more precautions now than I was, so I don't have to go without seeing him for the rest of the season.
After months of delay, the Reds finally opened the season on July 24th. Barnhart's son is born the next day.
My wife had to be tested every single time that maybe she would go home when we would go on the road and come back. Going on the road, and every time you go on the road, not know when you're going to see your family next because of things that are kind of out of your control is difficult. So it's constant stress of being able to be around your family and wondering if it was safe enough for your family to be there.
By the end of July, more than 150,000 Americans who contracted COVID-19 are dead. Businesses begin to reopen in the summer. Restrictions are eased, and the virus surges again. People want to get back to normal, but maybe this is normal now. Life constantly interrupted.
We don't get out. We don't get out as much as we usually do. We usually get out like every day, but now we only get out like once a week to get some fresh air. I just feel trapped kinda, so I just feel like I want to get out. I just want to go somewhere for a whole day and see other people. Those are the three things I've not been able to do during the summer.
After months of staying at home, Nina's family drives to Texas to quarantine for 6 weeks with her grandparents.
I'm like nervous, kind of scared, got all of the jitters coming, like I'm officially moving out on my own, away from home. Classes start in like 2 weeks, August 17th. Whether they're online or in class, we'll see. I was able to start playing volleyball again. Yeah, it's like released a weight off of my chest and I just feel like I'm back to being me. It's just nice to touch the ball and do what I've loved for, I don't know, however long I've been playing.
Despite the second wave of the virus, some try to return to a semblance of the life they led before the pandemic. For others, though, the frustration, confusion, and isolation grow.
Everybody's life has been, dramatically
changed. I mean, we have grandchildren who live literally down the road. You know, we go down and see them, but we see them outside. We see them with masks. Sunday morning, we had a new granddaughter born, but you know, we're not gonna be able to hold her. We're gonna look at her from a distance. It's gonna be weird.
For me as a daughter, for him, he is older and at risk, and so he doesn't get to go into the restaurants, which causes him, you know, to be very sad a lot. Isolation is depressing. And so, you know, he still does go to the restaurants here and there, but we're pretty protective over him.
She's kept me alive. She's kept me alive.
I'm frustrated because it's not getting better, and it's simply because people are not caring about anybody but themselves. It's a selfish thing not to wear a mask. That's why I'm frustrated, because every morning I get up thinking this is a nightmare. When is it going to end? I can't go outside. I need a hug. That's what I miss more than anything. And I know for a lot of people, they think, well, I miss being able to go to a bar. You can drink at home. But, you know, everybody's been so privileged, I think, for so long. We've taken all this for granted. I'm all the more determined to get through this.
Nedra Ward has been a Cincinnati police officer for almost 20 years. This is one of the most violent summers she's seen. The city is on a record-breaking pace for homicides.
There's no outlet right now for people. You know, there's nowhere for people to really go. A lot of places where you go and be social were shut down. So people, you know, men need an outlet, women need an outlet. Everybody needs an outlet somehow, you know. I think it really got real sad for me when I seen how often we are having people shoot each other here in our city. Even kids like getting hold of guns and, you know, young people getting murdered. I'm like, the numbers are getting high, and it's just not slowing down. It's just like one after another.
We have District 5 units responded to a shooting. We discovered a 8-year-old suffering from a fatal gunshot wound.
We are getting ready to watch fire and EMS spray off some of the playground equipment as well as the sidewalks that are covered in blood from the shooting that happened early this morning.
What is going on? This is not who Cincinnati is or who we used to be, none of that. This is just not us. So I'm just trying to figure out, like, how did we get to this point? Why are we here? I pray things turn around because it's just one after another and people are being murdered for nothing, absolutely nothing at all. I think it's a lack of communication. Like, we don't know how to communicate no more. I just don't know where we're headed. And I just think we need to really get it together as a country. We need to clean up our house. It can't be one-sided. We need to come together and meet in the middle.
But we aren't coming together. We're pulling apart. The response to the pandemic, the protest and counter-protest, the presidential election, all of it divides us. Sometimes, it seems, the only thing we share is the virus.
We are in a situation where we're seeing rapid spread faster than we've ever seen it before. And we know what's causing it. We know what's driving it. It's people not wearing masks. It's people letting their guard down.
COVID doesn't care if you're over it or not. It's here. So you can stop wearing your masks. You're going to get COVID, most likely. I mean, your risks are much, much higher. This is the way it is now, and we don't really have a choice. I mean, it's just sort of the new normal.
By the end of September, 200,000 Americans who contracted COVID-19 are dead. Sherry Kleckner's father didn't get a funeral in the spring. So in late summer, family and friends gather at his childhood home to scatter his ashes. 2 of Sherry's uncles, who also fell ill with COVID, are still struggling to fully recover.
Cheers. Cheers again.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Love you, brother.
Cheers, Dad. Love you, Uncle Barry. Love you, Uncle Barry.
Get them all out of there. Where he wanted to be.
The election magnifies our differences. How should we vote, by mail or in person? How should we campaign, at big rallies or by Zoom call? Every issue, every crisis becomes a political issue, a political crisis.
Our politics is as divided as they've been since the 1960s. Each side is playing near their base. There's 10% in the middle that don't know what the hell to do. We're incentivized to yell at each other and not to listen.
This is going to be a biggie, and we need it. I think everybody's on the same page. We're going to have, hopefully, a big turnout everywhere.
A lot of times people don't think much about elections until a presidential year, and then all of a sudden all the focus is on elections and how they're administered.
Sherry Poland is the director of elections. It's her job to make sure ballots go out on time and every vote is counted, no matter how loud or angry the partisan fights become.
There's been so much planning and so much preparation that it's go time. Now those ballots are being put in the mail, and then we know that's the beginning of democracy, and it's the most simplest way for people to exercise their voice. I'm always so impressed with the voters, you know, and things, there might be a lot of noise surrounding them, but voters they always just peacefully exercise their right to vote and respect one another.
Tonight, a backlog of undelivered mail is piling up in post offices around the country.
Mass mail-out ballots are going to be more at risk of fraud.
You will determine the outcome of this election. Vote, vote, vote.
This morning, America's election making headlines around the world, anxiously awaiting the outcome. The world witnessing an election unlike any other.
Election day becomes election week as millions of mail-in votes are slowly, painstakingly counted. The results leave the nation exhausted and anxious, and as divided as ever.
This is a scene outside of the Maricopa Election Center.
If you count the legal votes, I easily win. If you count the illegal votes, they can try to steal the election from us.
We are going to avoid airing any more of this White House briefing until it returns to what it was supposed to be, which was the coronavirus task force providing medical information.
After 4 long, tense days, we've reached a historic moment in this election.
I pledge to be a president who seeks not to divide, but unify. Who doesn't see red states and blue states, only sees the United States.
This event in Freedom Plaza is billed as one to support President Trump, organized in just the past week as a way of showing force in the wake of his election loss.
Counter-protesters clashed with those who turned out for the president, even throwing fireworks. There were fistfights to all-out brawls, which stretched into the early hours this morning.
After weeks of blocking the Biden transition, the Trump administration backed down late this afternoon and is now allowing it to begin.
By mid-December, more than 280,000 Americans who contracted COVID-19 are dead. As the year nears its end, life still feels off-kilter, unsettled. The things we count on to ground us remain unstable. School, work, friends, and family. Nothing is the same as it was, and no one knows when or if it will be.
That's what's hard, I think, for people who see the reality reality of this every day and live with it every day, and to still know there are people out there who are saying this thing is not real. It's crazy.
I worry that everybody's waiting for this vaccine and then that's going to be the cure-all and we're all going to be fine. Everybody's going to go back to the way it was. But I think we have to be realistic that we may be dealing with this for a long time.
The thing that I've been thinking about a lot in 2020 is, as everything is shaken, look for the places where God is redeeming, that there's an opportunity for things to heal.
I'm trying to do the best I can. That's why I said I'm keeping a journal, and I wrote something in my journal to the effect, I think when this is over, I will have learned something from it and be more appreciative than I've ever been of getting up in the morning. And my balcony, which I never really did anything with, I go out there every night. And Adam, the 4-year-old next door, and I, we blow bubbles. we do bubbles on the balcony. Being on that balcony every night gives me a feeling of freedom and more normalcy. But I never really appreciated that balcony till now.
How we get through this all depends on the type of people that we're willing to be. It's all about protecting your neighbor. It's all about putting on the mask for the 100th time, even though you don't want to.
Be good.
Our ability to sacrifice for each other is the key to saving our economy. Compassion. Us doing the right thing to protect one another is the key to getting our kids back in school for learning. And compassion is critical to saving lives. So I think we have seen a whole lot of the very best of us. And we've seen some of the very worst of us.
There, perfect.
2020 didn't change us, it revealed us. We saw in ourselves all that we're capable of being. The year ahead may reveal even more. COVID is spreading faster than ever, and hospitals are filling up. The economy continues to struggle, and millions remain out of work. Vaccines are on the way, yet their arrival alone won't end the pandemic. So much is beyond our control, but not all. How we respond to whatever comes next is up to us. The choices we make, the stands we take, those are what will define us. And while we are, as many have said, in this together, we also, each of us, must find our own way.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you like this video, check out these other videos from USA Today to stay up to date with all the latest news.